like to thank Her Excellency and the organisers of this wonderful event. Now, the theme of this year's International Language Day is, of course, as we've been hearing, cross-border languages, and I too have been asked to speak from my personal experiences, my personal perspectives. In other words, what role has language played in my life? Now, at this stage, I want to ask, is there anybody here at all from Turkey? Any representation from Turkey? I don't see any hands. That's a real shame, because I will be talking about Turkey in a second. I've been living there for the past 4.5 years. I'm a foreign correspondent for TRT World. That means I go into war zones and refugee camps and places where many people are suffering greatly. But I'll come on to that in a bit. So I first want to talk about my relationship with language as a child. Now, my first language was Sylheti. Now, we haven't heard this word at all this evening. That is the language that my parents spoke at home. My first words, the first words I ever uttered, would have been in Sylheti, although it was probably Amma. I'm sure the third or fourth words would have been Sylheti, I think. But notice, when I say Sylheti, I refer to it as a language and not a dialect. You may be aware that there's been a growing movement to formally recognise Sylheti as an actual language, and there are many good reasons for this. Did you know that many books, literature, poetry has been written in the Sylheti language? It actually has an alphabet. I didn't know that until very recently. So when we talk about cross-border languages, I think it's equally important to acknowledge the historical importance of local and indigenous languages and the part they have played in shaping cultures and civilizations. In my case, and no doubt for many others like me, speaking two languages played a central role in shaping my identity. That is nothing unusual. Many people around the world are bilingual. And as I grew older, I was exposed to the outside world. I picked up English. To a great extent, language is culture. It is identity. So when I'm asked about what role language has played in my life, my response is the language that I speak are a reflection of my multifaceted cultural identity. And this is a wonderful thing. But it also reminds us of how culture, and therefore language, is not a constant, homogeneous entity. It is fluid, forever evolving, meandering across time and space. And the Turkish language is a classic example of this. Now take this Sylheti Bangladeshi girl, fast forward many years, and you'll find her in Istanbul. Suddenly, I'm rendered mute. I'm thrust to the fringes of Turkish society because I don't speak Turkish. Outside of my workplace, nobody speaks English. Google Translate suddenly becomes my best friend. I use it to buy washing machines, to buy fridges. I type in entire sentences and thrust my phone in front of the faces of sales assistants so I can find out the details of the 2-year warranty of my fridge. It works. Thank God for Google. And yet Turkey reminds me yet again of the malleability of cultures and of people. Go and stand in Taksim Square and you'll hear Arabic, Azeri, Kurdish, Armenian, Persian, African languages, so many other tongues. Turkish itself is an amalgamation of so many. The Turkic people originated from Central Asia, parts of Western Mongolia and westwards thereof, and travelled for 600 years before they arrived in Anatolia, where they are now settled. They're nomads, and their language reflects that. Here are some words that you will be familiar with. Kalim, pencil. Dukan, shop. Shishe, bottle. Misafir, friend. Sabze, vegetables. Many more. A fascinating aspect of how language does meander, does mutate, does transform through time and space. Now, I am ashamed to say that in the 4.5 years that I've been living in Turkey, I haven't managed to pick up much of the language, but I'm getting there. I can now speak a little bit. And what I discovered, it's actually a very difficult language to learn, but I discovered that when I made an effort, something wonderful happened. I was no longer on the peripherals of Turkish society. The Turkish people started opening their arms and welcoming me in, because this is the impact that language has. Nelson Mandela said, if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. In other words, it's through language that we reveal the very core of our souls, be it Sylheti, Bengali, English, or Turkish. And that is why International Mother Language Day is so important. Thank you very much. I'm ashamed to say is far from fluent, and my Bengali, many would say, is not that brilliant either, so I'm going to have to speak in English this evening. So this is part of a series of reports that I did about 1.5 years ago on Bangladesh's economy. It ran for 1 week on TRT World, the channel that I've been working for the past 4.5 years. And I looked at a number of sectors, and in fact, who would have known that Bangladesh had such a thriving and growing pharmaceutical industry? Did any of you know? I didn't even know, and I'm a journalist. It was actually pointed out to me by His Excellency, the Bangladeshi ambassador. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to say a few words, but as soon as I start, I will be giving away the winner, but I'm asking the winners to refrain from cheering just for a few moments, because what I have to say is important. In 1971, during the Bangladesh War of Independence, between 200,000 and 400,000 Bengali women and girls were systematically raped and tortured by the Pakistani army and its local Bengali collaborators. These figures are undisputed. Rape was used as a deliberate military strategy. The women were taken away from their families on the back of lorries and held in camps for months. Some witnessed their children being killed in front of their eyes, and some went on to give birth to war babies. Even after Bangladesh was liberated, these women found no solace because of the shame and taboo surrounding sexual assault. They were shunned by their communities, their husbands divorced them, and they often had to beg for food in order to survive, simply because they were raped. Only recently have they been given the honorific title of freedom fighters and are receiving help from the state. It is a stain on the conscience of the world that this is a story very few people know about. But this year's winning documentary is not just about these brave women of Bangladesh, or Birangana as they are known. It is about highlighting the long-term impact of rape as a weapon of war, regardless of where that war is taking place, be it Bosnia, Rwanda, Myanmar's Rakhine State, or anywhere else. The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said the aim of rape as a war tactic is to terrorize people and to destabilize societies. He said its effect can echo across generations through trauma, stigma, poverty, long-term health issues, and unwanted pregnancies. He urged that survivors should be heard and their needs recognized. The winning documentary has gone some way to achieve this. It's given some of the survivors of rape a voice. It's shown that they are not just victims, but they are women we can all draw strength and inspiration from. For these reasons, the other judges and I felt very strongly that it was worthy of the winner of the Asian Media Awards Best Investigation 2019, and it is, of course, Rising Silence by Lisa Ghazi in conjunction with her